My name's Imogen, I'm 19 years old and I'm currently on a gap year. Since I started my YouTube channel about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I put out a few videos about travelling, and today I want to bring all of that stuff together into kind of one travel tips video. I guess you could call this a part 2 of my previous tips, tricks and budgeting video for Singapore, Malaysia and Australia, because today's tips are going to be more focused on if you're taking an Interrail trip around Europe. The first category for my tips is apps. So there's a couple of suggestions for apps that I think you should download before going Interrailing. I've already talked about the Interrail app, that isn't one of these two, in my previous Interrail planning video, and definitely go and check that out if you haven't already seen it. The other app that I think that you should definitely download is something called Maps.me. Maps.me is an offline maps app that you can use if you don't have data, so when you're going out of your hostel, you can still access maps. It's not as good as like Google Maps or Apple Maps in my personal opinion, but it's certainly the best for if you need an offline app. The second app that I absolutely loved for my Interrail trip was something called TripCoin. So when you open up the app, you will see that it looks a little bit like this. So if you click on trips and then click on Imogen's Interrail, that was the last time I used this, you'll be able to see all of my spending from when I went Interrailing. Basically, you can put in all of your different expenses, you can categorise them by whether they were like food, accommodation or whatever, you can categorise them by which country you visited, and the thing that I love the most about this, which was particularly useful when you're going between countries that don't necessarily always use the euro like I was, so I was going to Hungary and different places where there were different currencies, is you can put your expenses in the currency that you used in that specific country, and then the app automatically calculates how much that would cost in your currency back at home. So for me that was British pounds. Another function that I absolutely love about this app is the statistics, I can't say that word, statistics tab at the bottom of the screen. So if you click on that here, you can see how much I spent each day, and obviously that's higher at the start and the end because I had to pay for my flights. The other thing that you can do is look at a breakdown by how much you spent in each country that you went to, and also what payment method you used for different transactions. For me, that was particularly useful because I had booked some things before I went, so obviously I was using like a different card for that, and then I had a separate card for when I went away and I was getting money out of cash machines, and I also did some transactions with cash. And so this was a fantastic app for keeping on top of my finances because I was able to bring together all of the different like bits of money and the different pots that money had come out of in one place and see my spending specifically just for that trip. I know I keep going on about this app, but I honestly can't stress how useful this was for me for keeping on top of my finances. I've had a couple of different like finance budgeting apps for when I was traveling, and I didn't find any that worked as well as this. Also, bonus, this is a completely free app, as is Maps.me. I forgot to mention, I won't be mentioning any apps that you need to pay for because I will not be spending money on apps. So moving on to the next category, which is food. My first tip in terms of food would be to plan some basic meals that you can cook with non-perishable foods. So for example, if you can make rice or pasta based dishes, then that's really good, because if you only use half a bag of pasta or like a quarter of a bag of pasta, I don't know how big your pasta dish would be if you were having a whole bag for one person, but if you're only cooking half the bag of pasta, you'll be able to reseal it and take it with you to your next destination. However, if you're taking, like for example, things like milk, or making, I don't know what you'd be cooking with milk, maybe making like a cheese sauce with milk or something, then you're not going to be able to take that milk with you because it's going to go off and it's just going to be a nightmare to haul around with you. So you want to make sure that you've got some like staple dishes in your head before you go and you actually know how to cook them. I guess that's quite an important tip. My personal favourite easy quick dish to make when you're travelling is a jar of pasta sauce, which you can get from literally any supermarket, the ready-made ones, because you're on the go, you don't want to be having like to make the sauce from scratch, not about that, with some pasta, and it just makes a delicious meal. It will do for that day, and also it will do for the next day. And that moves me swiftly on to my next tip, which is to bring a Tupperware tub with me. I would say a Tupperware tub is an essential because it means that you'll be able to take your like pasta or whatever dish you had from the night before, you can put it in a Tupperware tub. If you're getting into a city really late, you can just heat it up in the microwave, so that's your ready-made food for that evening. Or you can have pasta cold during the day, or it's just really handy to keep like food separate in your bag. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, get yourself a foldable Tupperware tub, but I'm not spending money on a foldable Tupperware tub when we've got about 50 downstairs. So as long as you pack your Tupperware tub when it's in your backpack with like loads of other stuff, like just, I don't know, shove your socks in there or something, wash it up before you use it, then it doesn't have to be a bulky item in your bag, and you don't have to spend money on like specific things for your traveling. Link to cooking at hostels. I would say if you're in the UK or like wherever you are before you go on your trip, you know those buffets where they have like those tiny sachets of like salt and pepper? Collect as many of those as you can, because it means that you'll be able to take them with you on your trip, stick them in that Tupperware tub of yours, and then you'll be able to season your food wherever you are, and you won't have to rely on the hostel having like salt and pepper, because you are not going to be buying salt and pepper meals to take around with you, because that is a complete waste of space. And I guess the other thing to say is just shop at supermarkets, because it will be so much cheaper. Obviously it's fine if you want to have like an authentic meal out like we did in Slovakia, then you can go out for like a couple of meals, but I wouldn't recommend eating out all the time because it will be so expensive. Talking of money, that is my next category. So I would say the best thing for budgeting, and something that really helped me besides my absolute favourite app, TripCoin, was planning how much I was going to spend each day. So my daily budget was £40 a day, and that was more than enough, I found. And that included my accommodation and my food, my extras, everything like that. The only thing I didn't really count into that was my travel, but most of that was paid for by my Interrailing ticket. My next tip regards the free tours, because we absolutely know that I love a free tour. If you're going to sneak off, like, I don't know, at the start because you're just not really feeling the tour, then obviously you don't need to give a tip. But if you do the whole tour, then it's really important to make sure you tip the guides, because for a lot of people that is their livelihood. For me personally, I found that I was giving about £5 to £10 worth of tip for a larger tour when I was away. But obviously I talked about in my previous video about when I was on a tour and it was just 3 of us, and the man really kindly did a tour for us in Prague. Obviously then I gave a little bit more because there were fewer people, so he wasn't going to earn as much. My next tip, which is about safety and money, was to always have some spare money and keep it in an unusual location. So I'm going to let you into a little secret. I used to keep my spare money in my first aid kit, because who is going to be looking through my first aid kit for my spare money? And I had this in pounds so that I could transfer it into any currency. But the majority of the time I would just have my money in my money belt or bum bag or whatever you want to call it, because I just felt that once it was on me, it was safe, and yeah, everything was fine. And my final category is packing. Now I think I'm going to do a whole video on this because I have learned a lot through my different trips, but I do have a few specific tips to interrailing. So I actually took a rucksack interrailing. It was a 40-litre rucksack, which I know is really small, but I didn't have many clothes, it was all fine, like I fitted everything in. But I would say if I was going to do it again, I would take a suitcase, because unless you're going really off the beaten track, the majority of places in Europe have like tarmac or concrete, and you can just wheel a trolley or like wheel your suitcase, your wheelie trolley, I don't know, along that so much easier than you can having to literally have your whole life on your back, especially if you're a small person like me. My next tip is to pack a travel towel. Now there's quite a lot of like talk about whether travel towels are good or bad. I would say they're definitely not the best things to dry yourself with, but in terms of the space that you save compared to like a normal towel, 100% worth it. My next tip is to take a padlock, specifically a combination one. You will probably need these in hostels, and I would recommend a combination one, because if you write down the password in the notes app of your phone, it's so much harder to like lose that or forget the password than it is to lose a key if you've got a keyed padlock. And my last tip, which is a little bit rogue, is to take some pegs with you. Honestly, pegs are such a useful thing, and you might think, Imogen, you've gone completely cuckoo at this point, but hey ho, I would say take pegs, because you can pack up, like you can roll up the top of crisps or like a pasta bag and keep that fresh with pegs. You can also hang out your washing if you're traveling for a long period of time. So just take some pegs. If you've got any other useful like little bits that you took with you interrailing or traveling that you would recommend to other people, definitely do also comment that down below, and hopefully the comments can be a useful forum for anybody who is thinking of going traveling. So that is all for this video. I really hope that you have found it useful. If you have, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any more of my uploads. Have a lovely day, and I will see you next time.